This educational stop is about nitrogen management in corn, and I've been messing around with stabilizers for a while in my career. And I just want to show you a couple things we noticed in a couple of our products, Excelis Max and Dual Max. We'll talk a little bit about that. You know, probably the future of corn production looks like to me is probably going to be narrow rows and higher populations. And that probably means we got to feed that crop better P&K wise, and certainly got to manage that nitrogen better yet. And you know, we spend a lot of time talking about the 300 bushel goal. And is it attainable? What do we see out there from universities, and what do we hear from you know, guys that are really pushing the yield? Current U.S. national corn average, guys, about 147 bushel an acre. That's probably a couple years old, so it's probably more like 153, looks like, if I look at USDA numbers. World record corn production, 532 bushels to the acre there. From a guy over in Virginia. Michigan, 286 bushels, so y'all are kind of knocking on the door at 300 bushel here in certain circumstances. And so our big question here at Timac Agro always is, how can we use our, you know, our technology to help farmers capture more of that yield gap? It's there. Our national average is 147 bushel, somewhere around 150. We need to get to that 300 bushel gain there. That point. We have some. There's a yield gap there. It's potential. We know it's there. How do we do it? And you guys that farm corn, you know that the calculation of yield is a very simple one. All you do is take the number of ears that you got per acre there and multiply it by the number of kernels that you have on that seed, number of rows round, number of rows long. And that last final step there is test weight, the weight of those seeds. For every 1 milligram increase in seed weight at 32,000 population, that's another bushel, y'all. And so that final push into grain yield is a really, really important aspect of your production. When it comes to nitrogen, managing that nitrogen for that end gain is something that I think we all, you know, should really think about. How do we do it? And for Excelis Max, this is all about surface applied urea and UAN, and we know that nitrogen wants to move on us, especially if it's urea and UAN. It wants to volatilize when it's left on the surface. If we get a bunch of rain, it wants to leach away. And so how do we control that nitrogen, especially for that end gain? You all know that corn is going to pull up about 40% of its nitrogen within about a month there between V10 and tassel, right? And so if we put a bunch of nitrogen out up front, how can we ensure that that nitrogen is going to be there at the time when it needs it most? And then again, that end game, pushing grain fill is another big way to increase yields as well. In order to sort of answer some of these questions about how this technology can improve yields on your farm, I think it's important to put into context what factors control yield in corn. You know, what are the most important things that we can work on? And we pull here now from Dr. Fred Below's lab and some other guys, University of Illinois, University of Iowa, Michigan State even has done a lot of work with looking at nitrogen management and stabilizers. Fred Below's work here is shown on the left-hand side, and as you all know, being in Michigan this year, what's the number one thing that controls yield in corn? It's weather. Yeah, it's weather. And you can see, if the wind stops for a moment, weather kind of influences everything below those factors that Dr. Below and others have sort of highlighted. So what's number 2 on the list there, guys? You can see nitrogen's number 2 on that list. In fact, when you compare nitrogen and weather together, when you combine those, that's about 50% of your yield right there. So nitrogen management and weather together work to control almost half of what y'all are going to end up putting in your bin. So this is educational stop here about nitrogen management. We think we put these plots into we put these plots together, these products in these plots because of that factor there, nitrogen number 2 on the list. You can see here, guys, what it did this morning is I just went out and pulled at random 1/1000th of an acre out of the Exelis Max and control plots here. And I don't know if you can see from where you're sitting, but it's pretty darn obvious here we're going to be pulling a lot more yield off of that Exelis Max plot here on the right hand side. We're filling these cobs out. There's more grain here round, and there's definitely more grain pushing to the end. And this final step there, like I said, grain test weight is another way to put bushels in the bin. And where at this point does that final push come from? And it comes here at the end from that ear leaf. And when we look at the condition of the ear leaf here in the Exelis plot versus the control plots, I think you can pretty much see what's going to be able to, which plot's going to push more grain, push more weight into that final grain section there. So another very, very beneficial aspect of controlling nitrogen management with Exelis Max. Dual Max here, we've been working with Dual Max a little bit more on the incorporated nitrogen side. Again, a product like Exelis Max that has control of volatility, very important for surface applied urea and UAN. And that's exactly how we set that plot up. 150 pounds of nitrogen, set out all pre-plant, and given the weather conditions that we had early on with excessive moisture and then some dryness that followed, that set up a very classic case of potential volatility loss there. I think you can see that Exelis Max did a real nice job of controlling that. Leaching aspect of it later on, excessive rains, we've got to hold that nitrogen there. And I feel like with surface applied UAN and urea, Exelis Max is a great, great choice for you. Dual Max, again, there's a plot over here with Dual Max in with the starter. And so Dual Max has the flexibility of being able to be used with the P and K as well as nitrogen, especially incorporated. And I just pulled 10 cobs at random there, and looks like, you know, probably another 6-7 bushel advantage there to using Dual Max with the NPK starter fertilizer program there. So, just looking at you know, estimates of yields here, guys, I wouldn't be surprised to pull another 15 bushel out of that Exelis Max plot. That would fit in pretty well with what we're seeing at the national level with our university work. I think the average is about 13.2 bushel over rate matched control. And that's, I think, 12, 13 university studies now. So that should fit in pretty nicely here with what we're seeing. Any questions here, guys, about nitrogen management, the use of stabilizers? I highly recommend you think about that in your program and manage that nitrogen for not only that pre-plant period, but also that back-end management scenario as well. Any questions, guys?